Right, Brian Billick here at SoxFest 2017. I'm here with White Sox General Manager Rick Hahn. And Rick, where I'll start with you is you guys took a new course of action this year. What is the origin of when that started? When you made that concession to the media that the organization's been mired in mediocrity, was that the point where you guys knew you had to take a different course of action?
We knew, and we'd been talking about this, frankly, for a number of years about when was the right pivot point to switch from sort of that short-term patchwork kind of team-building methodology that we had used in recent years to taking a little bit longer-term approach to what we wanted to accomplish. Jerry, Kenny, and I have had these conversations each of the last few off-seasons and into the seasons where we haven't measured up to what we wanted to accomplish. I don't quite remember exactly when I made the mired in mediocrity comment in terms of how it coincided to our internal decisions, but it certainly was emblematic of what we were feeling at the time when I made that comment, and it was probably contemporaneous when we were making that decision about time to move forward.
Right, and the big splash that started the movement was the trade of Chris Sale, and in return you got a guy in Moncada who's a premier position prospect. Was that the focus in the return to headline it with a guy who's plays the field and is one of the best prospects in the league?
I think if we had our druthers, we'd want to start off any package and for a premium talent like Chris with a premium position player. It wasn't the end-all be-all. It wasn't a necessity, but certainly once Boston put Moncada into the mix and given some of the names we were talking to with other clubs, that became the most appealing deal to try to build around. Now, obviously, Boston had a deep system, which helped. Getting a guy like Kopech, who not only us, but obviously I believe you guys as well, project very well as a potential front-end type prospect in the rotation. All of a sudden, you're attacking it from both ends with them, and that becomes clearly the package that we want to try to close off.
And after acquiring Moncada, I'm sure he factors into the next few years' forecast with Tim Anderson, last year's top prospect. Both of these guys have a lot of natural ability, strong arms, and the ability to play multiple positions. You got them slated at second and shortstop. Is it conceivable that one of them ends up at a position other than where they're currently at?
It's conceivable, yes. I think if I were a betting man and I had to lay money on it, I would suspect that TA is going to be the shortstop of the future and Moncada would be the second baseman of the future. They certainly both have the athleticism and the baseball acumen to play other positions. Obviously, Boston with Pedroia had moved Moncada over to third base, and it's not inconceivable that happens along our lines as well. I've heard some scouts say that he's capable of playing center field even. Again, I would place money on the fact that he's going to stay at second, but he does have the ability to go elsewhere.
And with the change in action, there's been a lot less focus on the 2017 roster, and a couple guys we have here today, and Matt Davidson and Charlie Tilson, both played one game, suffered very unfortunate injuries. But I guess where are they at in their recovery, and how do they factor into the 2017 roster?
Charlie, we'll start with him, is coming along very well. He's medically completely healed and cleared, and now it's just a matter of ramping up the baseball activity, most of which he's already has under his belt. I think for him, until he's truly out chasing down a ball in the gap, it won't be until that point that he feels comfortable that he's fully recovered and that he can fire the way he wants to fire, and that's sort of a gut instinct thing and a kind of thing you can't replicate on a training regimen. So he's getting close, but that's going to final hurdles for him are going to come in spring training. With Matty, the foot's healed, and hopefully no ill effects going forward. And both those guys, whether it's Charlie potentially being the primary center fielder or Matty's bat fitting in a lineup somewhere, whether it's some at third, some at first, some DH, we expect both of them, as we see it today, to be in a position to contribute in 2017.
And then just to close out, in most of your appearances in the media and then again today in the presser, you've brought up the word patience. And you've brought it up in reference to the front office, in reference to the fans. But in terms of player development, now that the team isn't on a shorter window, isn't trying to compete immediately necessarily, is it going to change the way that certain prospects are brought through the system?
It is. We are. No one's going to be in Chicago because there's a need in Chicago alone. They're going to be in Chicago because they've answered any questions we've had about their development along the way, and we feel like they're prepared for the finishing stages of their development in Chicago. In other words, I was asked last night at an event about Zach Collins, and do you think we're going to see him in 2017? And I said, look, the good ones have a way of forcing the issue, sure. I said, but the only way he's here in 2017 is if he has a tremendous advancement in his development for a kid who's going to start an A-ball. that he merits being in Chicago. We're not closing our mind off to any of it, but that's the only way he gets there, whether it's 17, 18, or 19, is because he's fully developed at the minor league level. There's nothing more for him to prove there, and he's ready for that last stages of development that happens to a player in the big leagues.
All right, that's Rick Hahn, White Sox general manager here at SoxFest 2017. And for everything about Rick Hahn, the White Sox rebuild, you can follow us on Twitter at Future Sox.